This is an incredibly influential film.
Absolutely. Every little moment works perfectly. It only gets better each time you see it.
Hidey-ho!
It is the definition of filmmaking at its best.
And it just lights up the screen. It kind of blows all the competition away. It's essential.
We are rapidly approaching a moment of truth, both for ourselves as human beings and for the life of our nation. Now, truth is not always a pleasant thing. But it is necessary now to make a choice, to choose between two admittedly regrettable, but nevertheless distinguishable post-war environments. One where you got 20 million people killed, and the other where you got 150 million people killed.
You're talking about mass murder, General, not war.
Mr. President, I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed, but I do say no more than 10 to 20 million killed, tops, depending on the breaks.
So, Brad, this is one of two Kubrick films, Stanley Kubrick films, that you're presenting on the Essentials?
Yeah, I can't help myself.
No, it's quite all right. This is Dr. Strangelove, the other one, 2001, A Space Odyssey.
In a row.
In
boom,
a row,
boom.
right. And I would, for me, it's this one and Going Back and Paths of Glory.
Right. Well, love Paths of Glory, but to me, Dr. Strangelove is my favorite Kubrick film, and it's one of the best comedies ever made, and hasn't aged a day. I mean, to me, it's just as vital and just as unsettling and funny at the same time as it was whenever it was first released.
So, yeah, 1964, and Kubrick, it is said, read 70 books on the arms race. He was fascinated by the arms race, and of course, in that period, late 50s, early 60s, the threat of nuclear annihilation was much more real than it is today. I mean, it's still there, but they felt it acutely then.
Yeah, it was much more in the air.
Yeah.
Now it's underneath us and we don't pay attention to it, but it also could happen at any moment.
And as he read more and more, including this book, Red Alert by Peter George, that formed the basis of the screenplay, he was going to make a serious movie about, nuclear war. And then all the legitimate stories, the legitimate circumstances, the things that people said, it just seemed absurd. So he hires Terry Southern, and then we get this great screenplay.
Right, and so Peter George, Terry Southern, and Kubrick end up writing this film together, and again, what an odd mix of people. But when he tries to do the serious version of it, he keeps bumping up to, well, we have to avoid this fact because this is too funny, and people aren't going to take it seriously even though it's real. And finally he just goes, I'm fighting this. I got to surrender to the fact that this is completely absurd. What is reality is completely absurd, and that's the way we're going to do it. So even the names of the characters are like way over the top.
Jack D. Ripper.
Yes, and Merkin Muffley.
He's the president.
Yes, as the president. And
Premier Kissoff is the Russian, is the Soviet premier. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know what a Merkin was until much later in life. And I was like, this is the most hilarious name for kind of an ineffectual president, which is played perfectly by Peter Sellers.
Who has 3 roles.
3 roles, almost had 4. They wanted him for the Slim Pickens role, and he was like, well, I got too much on my plate with 3.
But Slim Pickens is so...
fantastic.
Yeah.
I had a strange relationship to this film because I hadn't seen it, and I was in theater in high school. And the theater teacher who directed the plays for the high school said, you have one assignment tonight, and that's you all must go to bed early, and you're going to set your alarms. At 2 o'clock this morning, you're going to wake up and you're going to watch Dr. Strangelove, and that's your homework. And if you haven't done it, you know, I'm going to give you a bad grade. You know, and he insisted that we watch Dr. Strangelove. So I set my alarm and watched it, and we couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe, A, the film itself is nutty and one of a kind, but the fact that Peter Sellers could play 3 roles, and you really have to be paying attention to realize it's Peter Sellers, because nothing in the three roles is in common.
Nothing.
The physical aspect of each character is completely different. The way he speaks is completely different.
And not just the accent, the cadence.
There's nothing to figure out, General Turgidson. This man is obviously a psychotic.
No, I'm perfectly serious, operator. The president, yes, the president of the United States.
It is not only possible, it is essential.
He changes everything about the characters, and the makeup is not really much of that.
No.
And for him, for the drama teacher, his name was Joe Malengo, he's still around, he felt like that is a one-man band of what acting can do and how much you can transform if you pay attention and go as deep as Sellers did.
All right, let's watch it. Here it is, from 1964, directed by Stanley Kubrick. Peter Sellers, Sterling Hayden, George C. Scott, Slim Pickens, also with Peter Sellers and Peter Sellers, Dr. Strangelove. This is filmmaking at its best.
It's essential.
Every time I watch Dr. Strangelove, I am so focused on, not Sellers, even though he's
Great.
acknowledged as brilliant, right?
Yeah.
But George C. Scott and Sterling Hayden, both playing these hawks, you know,
Yeah.
one a crazy hawk, but the other one kind of thinking, well, let's maybe take advantage of this situation.
That craziness has its uses.
Right, craziness has its use, yeah. They are spectacular.
Spectacular, and apparently Scott was mad at Kubrick for years, because every time he did a series of takes, he would end by going, okay, now go completely over the top. And so Scott would go, okay, and he'd do something over the top. It ended up that George C. Scott felt that Kubrick only used the over-the-top takes, and he was mad at him for years, and later on he kind of realized that's perfect for the movie.
It works here, it
Yeah,
works here.
and there's another great moment, and this shows you what a geek I am, but when I got the Blu-ray of it, I literally watched this over and over again, laughing myself silly for maybe a half an hour, which is mild brain damage on my part.
Yeah.
But Scott is delivering a line, and he takes a tumble and does a complete somersault and keeps delivering the line and finishes the line and goes, look at the big board, you know, they're ready to clobber us.
It's an obvious comic trick, Mr. President. We're wasting valuable time. Look at the big board. They're getting ready to clobber us.
The fact that he's professional enough to completely take a header and keep acting and not break is amazing, number one. That Kubrick chose to use it is the second amazing thing. And the third thing is, if you look at it, I mean, again, you have to be a geek. But if you go frame by frame, you can see him start to break at the very last couple of frames, like he started laughing.
Right.
But Kubrick used as much as he could possibly use
to get out,
and then cut. And it's just one more completely incongruous, weird thing in a movie full of them, and it makes it one of the greatest comedies ever.
And as we mentioned, that Kubrick starts this as a drama, then released later the same year is another film that I like almost as well, Failsafe,
right.
From Sidney Lumet, with Henry Fonda as the president, that treats the exact same situation.
Seriously.
But seriously, and they are really effective bookends. Failsafe didn't do very well because even though they were in production at exactly the same time and one did not steal from the other, to audiences, Failsafe felt derivative.
Right. Well, Kubrick used that because the book, Red Alert, had come out years before Failsafe. And so when he knew that Failsafe was being shot, he's like, they're going to steal our thunder because they're going to come out first. And so he kind of used the fact that Red Alert came out in book form years before and said they based fail-safe on red alert, and the judge agreed enough to delay fail-safe.
Yeah, that's right. Well, ultimately, Columbia bought fail-safe too to sort of settle everything, and then they released it. They released it late. This movie, again, there's so many great lines in this movie, but I do want to give you my absolute favorite because it is in the scene that I love most, which is Sterling Hayden and Sellers in the office, and Sellers' unbelievable frustration with, like, while humoring the power that General Ripper holds. So Hayden says to Sellers,
"Now, why don't you just take it easy, group captain? And please make me a drink of grain alcohol and rainwater, and help yourself to whatever you'd like."
And so when I remember to, when people ask me for a drink now, I say, just please make me a drink of grain alcohol and rainwater, and fix yourself whatever you like.
And they go,
Well, you know, you live in Los Angeles. There are enough people who appreciate hearing that.
There's probably a rainwater diet here.
Sure there is, yeah. I only drink rainwater. Anything else depletes our essence.
Yes, it does, and we can't, you know, we have to have purity of essence.
Brad, thanks very much. Here's a look at what's coming up next week on The Essentials with Brad Bird. A Hard Day's Night from 1964. This is the Beatles' first film, first time many people saw them, and there's a real innocence to them.
A Hard Day's Night has aged incredibly well. There's a loose, freewheeling quality to this film that you can feel from frame one. You can sense that they're just having a blast making it.
That's next Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Continue the conversation on Facebook and Twitter using the hashtag TCM Essentials. Thanks for joining us for The Essentials.